For millions of students, especially from the subcontinent, studying abroad is the ultimate dream. A passport to a better life, higher income, and global opportunities. But with sky-high tuition fees and education loans that can leave families burdened with debt for years, this dream comes at a cost. Hello everyone, this is Vivian Robert from the Global Desis, and today we are discussing the question, is it an investment in the future or is it a gamble too risky to take? According to the Indian Student Mobility Report, over 1.3 million students left India in 2023 to seek higher qualifications abroad. This is compared to just over a million in 2019, which basically shows that the trend and the lure for higher education abroad is only growing. Canada, USA, UK, and Australia, in that particular order, are the most popular destinations for Indian students seeking qualifications abroad. The demographics in India have changed over the last few decades, and the middle class and the upper middle class have now created enough wealth in order for their children to afford education abroad. But this still constitutes only 20% of the population, and a vast majority are still dependent on heavy student loans in order to finance this dream of theirs. Now, expectedly, over the past decade or so, the number of students seeking educational loans in India has skyrocketed. In India alone, the education loans grew by over 30% between 2015 and 2023, with nearly 90,000 crores, which is approximately 11 billion US dollars, outstanding education loans as of March 2023. This is expected to grow to approximately 24 billion by 2025, growing at a rate of 11.2% compounded annually from 2020 to 2025. While it's great that a lot of students are seeking out top-tier educational institutions abroad in order to fulfill their educational dreams abroad, a lot of families are still borrowing heavily to even attend lower-ranked universities, misled by dubious educational consultants with a promise of a job after graduation, seldom considering the risks involved. So what is fueling this surge? And more importantly, is the surge in education loans justified? For many, it can be a worthwhile investment, an opportunity to earn a degree from a prestigious institution abroad and get access to the global market and high-paying jobs. While for many others, it still remains a risky gamble with no guarantees that their degree will earn them a respectable job. In 2022, a survey by the National Career Service of India found that over 50% of students who took loans to study abroad attended institutions which were ranked well outside the top 200 globally. While graduates from top-tier institutions, for example, the Ivy League universities in the US or the Russell Group universities in the UK, earn significantly higher salaries, according to a 2023 pay scale study, graduates from other universities earned far less, often even struggling to repay their loans. Now, from personal experience, there are far too many Indian students who've come to the UK and have completed even their postgraduate education and working in formal jobs just to make ends meet. Their loan repayments are not just a burden for them, but a burden on their families as well. But what is it that drives families to take such monumental risks? What forces students from the Indian subcontinent to leave behind their friends, family, familiar surroundings in search of greener pastures abroad, which may or may not pay off in the longer run? The fact is that education is deeply tied to social mobility, especially in countries such as India. In 2019, a World Bank report highlighted that education is seen as the most viable pathway to upward mobility in developing countries, especially when domestic opportunities are limited. And in order to enable this upward social mobility, a study by HSBC conducted in 2022 highlighted that over 63% of the parents were willing to even mortgage their properties or deplete their entire life savings in order that their children can study abroad. And of course, you cannot take away the fact that there is fierce competition for top-tier education in India. For example, the acceptance rate in IITs for undergraduates is about 0.2 to 0.5%, which means there are 200 to 500 students competing for each seat. For postgraduate courses in IIMs, it is slightly better, with about 50 students per seat. Now compare this to a flagship undergraduate course at MIT, which is one of the most prestigious institutions in the world. And the competition is much lower, with an acceptance rate of over 3.7%, which means there are only 27 students competing for every single place at MIT. With the average Indian student being forced out of the Indian education system, it's not hard to see why many aspiring students seek overseas education as their choice to further their careers. For many Indian parents, it's not just about prosperity or the promise of social upward mobility. It is a matter of pride. Many parents see their children studying abroad as an investment into the family's future. They are willing to sacrifice or pledge what they have in a belief that the degree and associated employment will change their lives for the better. Not just the financial costs, but there are other hidden challenges that students seeking to study abroad need to contend with. Compounding the skyrocketing tuition fees are the unpredictable immigration laws that can turn any dream into a potential nightmare, especially for students from developing countries. In the UK, the average tuition fee for an undergraduate course per year is approximately £15,000 to £25,000, depending on the type of university you choose. In the US, it's not too dissimilar. It's about $20,000 to about $50,000. Medical degrees can cost significantly more. In Canada, international students pay approximately 30,000 Canadian dollars per annum. Now, the point to remember is, in all of these countries, international students pay a premium, a much higher premium compared to the local students, sometimes as high as 3 times what the locals pay for their education. Immigration policies can be a major source of uncertainty. As we speak, in the UK, there is currently a provision for a post-study work visa for 2 years. Now, the situation can be entirely dynamic and the laws can change sooner than we know it. While the 2-year post-study work visa can be favorable for a number of students to get short-term employment, there is no guarantee for securing long-term employment visas just on the basis of these 2 years. The US, as we all know, the students rely very heavily on the H-1B type of visa, which again is a total lottery, and the percentage of people who get through successfully every year is very, very small. So while you're in a position of relatively low risk if you graduate from a top-ranked university, there are still no guarantees that you will secure a work visa once you graduate. The system is highly competitive, and many students end up having to return to their home countries, taking back with them the burden of large loans. For those who take the leap and secure an education loan for studies abroad, the stakes couldn't be higher. Success or failure doesn't just affect the students. It can have a ripple effect across the family and possibly even across generations. A shocking finding by the 2022 survey conducted by the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy found that 40% of families who took out study loans for their children to study abroad either mortgage their property or deplete their life savings, creating a multi-generational debt burden if the desired outcome is not achieved at the end of the study. And also, it's not uncommon to see that many students, even despite completing their studies and getting a job, struggle to pay off the loans because of low starting salaries. A study by the CRIF has found out that at least 10% of Indian loans for foreign studies are at a risk of default. Now, with rising fees, visa uncertainties, and the potential for high long-term debts due to students choosing to study in the top 4 preferred study destinations, many students and families are now asking the question, is there a better way? Is there an alternative? The answer quite simply is that there can be opportunities elsewhere if you have the time and the aptitude to research these options. For example, countries like Germany and the Netherlands offer high-quality education with little to no tuition fees. Of course, language proficiency may be a requirement for some or many of the courses. In 2022, Germany saw a rise of about 15% in Indian students coming to Germany for higher studies because of free education and favorable work visa policies. Now, there are also some other offbeat study destinations which are becoming increasingly popular, not just for the students from the subcontinent, but for students from across the globe. And these are countries such as Lithuania, Estonia, Chile, Turkey, Malta, Taiwan, and South Korea, due to their lower costs and emerging student-friendly policies. From my personal experience, it is not uncommon for me to see students from the UK, in fact, choosing other destinations such as France, Germany, Netherlands, and also Bulgaria and Poland, due to the lower costs and possibility of gaining comparable and recognized international degrees. So how do you avoid falling into the trap of financial ruin? What can students and families do to ensure that they are making a smart choice when it comes to education abroad? Tip number 1 is do your own research. Research as much as you can in order to find out more about the various courses that a university offers, the global ranking of the universities, the job prospects, as well as the salary prospects once you graduate from that university abroad. The more time you spend researching, the less risk you will have of losing your money. And the second tip, it may not be possible for all, but there is absolutely no substitute for conversations with people whom you can trust, who either work in a similar industry or people who have traveled this path before you. This can be absolutely invaluable, sometimes even irreplaceable. Tip number 3, weigh the cost of your education against the potential income. Students who analyze costs and salaries have a 20% lower risk of loan default. Tip number 4 is spend as much time as you can in order to study the visa regulations and the work regulations in your chosen destination. This can be dynamic, but it's very important. And finally, if possible, try to pursue your education in a STEM-related field, as there are far lower chances of a STEM-related field being outside the shortage occupation list than it is for a generalist degree. Now, as we wrap up, it is clear that pursuing education abroad is neither a guaranteed path to success nor an outright gamble. The key lies in making strategic and informed choices and minimizing your risk as much as possible. In a world where opportunities are global, so are the risks. For many, the investment can pay off handsomely, But for others, the financial toll can be devastating. But in the end, it's the choices we make today that will define the outcomes for tomorrow. The purpose of this video was to provide a balanced perspective to the pros and cons of taking an educational loan to study and potentially work abroad. If you like the content presented in this video, do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us and help us bring you more such informative content in future.